breaking news tonight out of Uvalde, Texas's school district. The police chief, Pete Arredondo, has been placed on administrative leave as multiple state and federal agencies investigate the law enforcement response to last month's deadly school shooting. This news comes amid a brewing war between state and local officials, with the mayor of Uvalde now fighting back against claims that local police made disastrous and deadly errors in response to the massacre at Robb Elementary. Now, yesterday, at the first public hearing, the state of Texas Director of Public Safety, Stephen McGraw, took aim directly at Chief Arredondo.
There's compelling evidence that the law enforcement response to the attack at Robb Elementary was an abject failure.
Now, Uvalde Mayor Don McLaughlin apparently didn't take kindly to those comments, and last night at a Uvalde City Council meeting, he slapped back, claiming that the Texas DPS chief, who we just heard from, continues to, quote, lie, leak, mislead, or misstate information in order to make local officers look bad and downplay his agency's role in the response to the shooting.
Colonel McGraw has an agenda, and it's not to present a full report on what happened and to give factual answers to the families of this community. 19 students and 2 teachers tragically died. They were Uvalde children and Uvalde teachers. What matters to Uvalde is that these broken-hearted families and this grieving community get a full investigation and accurate report of what happened that day. The petty infighting, the clickbait headlines, and the politically motivated scapegoating is not helping anyone. It is dividing a community and further frustrating grieving families.
Well, that may be true, but he's now part of the petty infighting. Because remember, Director McGraw had blasted the police response to the shooting, laid the blame for the delayed response squarely on Arredondo, who was theoretically the incident commander on site.
The only thing stopping a hallway of dedicated officers from entering room 111 and 112 was the on-scene commander, who decided to place the lives of officers before the lives of children.
Tuesday's hearing came shortly after the release of new photos from the scene that show officers seemingly ready with guns drawn just outside 2 classrooms the shooter had taken over, waiting for clearance to breach the rooms. And during the hearing, McGraw shared the latest updates to their official minute-by-minute timeline of the shooting, which is critical. Now, the timeline has also become the subject of debate, with various officials having to correct or completely retract information they'd included in their accounts of what happened during the rampage. 3 investigations into the shooting are ongoing. Department of Justice, Texas House of Representatives Investigative Committee, and a third by a local district attorney. Now, when suspending Arredondo tonight, the school superintendent acknowledged he doesn't have the details of the investigations and that it's unclear when they'll get the results. But there is a lot we do know, which led to this action tonight. Arredondo's account of what happened on May 24th is tough to reconcile with the information that's been released to the public. For instance, according to DPS's director, McGraw, officers, including Arredondo, made no attempt to open the doors to the classrooms, 111 and 112, which the shooter had taken over, believing the doors to be locked, which McGraw says was not the case.
I don't believe, based on the information that we have right now, that that door was ever secured. In fact, I have great reason to believe it wasn't secured. And we've gone back and checked in our interviews, and did anybody touch the door and try it? You know, how about, do you need a key? Well, one of the things they teach you in active training, I'm sure that one of the experts can talk about it, how about trying the door and see if it's unlocked? Okay, as what we used to call a clue at that point. Why not? And of course, no one had.
But during an interview with the Texas Tribune earlier this month, Arredondo claimed that he did try to open that door. And another group of officers tried to open the other door to 112, but then neither door would open. So believing the doors were locked, Arredondo says he called for keys and extrication tools to force the doors open. According to Arredondo, he then called for police dispatch to send the tools to help open the doors, except that security footage from the hallways reportedly does not appear to show any officers, including Arredondo, trying to open the doors. Now, beyond the questions about whether the classroom doors were locked and whether anyone tried to open them, there are other discrepancies in Arredondo's timeline of events. Arredondo told the Tribune that he believed he was one of the first officers on the scene and called police dispatch for tactical gear, snipers, and more. But according to the timeline presented yesterday, the first officers entered the school, 2 with rifles, at 11:35 a.m. after the shooting began, minutes later. That timeline shows that as many as 10 police officers were inside the building by 11:36. And Arredondo's call for backup and supplies came in at 11:40. Arredondo also told the Tribune that the extrication tools he requested, which supposedly would have helped him open the doors, never reached him in the hallway outside the classrooms. But the state law enforcement timeline shows that what's called a Halligan bar, it's like an axe used by firefighters, was brought into the school around 12:35. But for some reason, authorities didn't use it, and instead they waited for keys. There's also this. Arredondo told the Tribune that he waited to order officers to enter the classroom because they were outgunned by the shooter. But according to the state's official timeline, officers with rifles arrived minutes after the shooting began. That timeline also shows that an officer with a ballistic shield first entered the school at 11:52 a.m., less than 20 minutes after the shooter first entered the building. Again, according to the State Department of Public Safety timeline, by 12:20, 3 more ballistic shields were available to officers inside the school. But officers didn't breach the classroom and kill the gunman until 12:50, a full 30 minutes after the final shield arrived. There's now even a question about who was in charge of the scene. According to DPS's McGraw, Chief Arredondo was the scene's incident commander, meaning he was in charge of the site. Authorities say Arredondo made the call to treat the shooter as a barricaded suspect, which would make the authorities less aggressive rather than treating the shooting like a hostage situation. Now, according to transcripts of the body cam footage, officers at the scene seemed to think Arredondo was in charge. And the Uvalde School District's top cop appeared to be issuing orders at the scene, directing officers to evacuate students from other classrooms while this is all ongoing. But again, Arredondo told the Tribune earlier this month that he'd assumed a different officer or official had taken command of the larger response, and he was just another frontline responder. How does that make sense? If he was the first officer on the scene, as Arredondo claimed to be, and the school district's police chief, no less, why wouldn't he be in command of the response to the shooting? Officers waited for more than an hour and 14 minutes to finally storm the classroom, and according to McGraw, it was Arredondo who was slowing things down.
When the rifles were there, okay, not just 2, but more, many. When the radios were there, and radios never worked anyway, but when the shields were there, and not 1, 2, but eventually 4, when the first elements of SWAT got there was always a reason to wait. Then it became the key. So there's always something that was delayed it. And the time, I'll keep emphasizing, 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 8 seconds. You know, it's not just a lifetime, it's many lifetimes.
This boils down to accountability. While Uvalde Mayor McLaughlin is talking about leaks and trying to claim that Director McGraw is skirting responsibility, it seems really tough to be defending Arredondo here. Director McGraw said in his testimony that this has set the whole law enforcement profession back a decade. But as I said last night, regardless of who's at fault, none of this should detract from the excellent police work happening in so many departments across the country. Joining me now is Elizabeth Findle, who has been all over the Uvalde story for the Wall Street Journal. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for coming on the show. Appreciate it. All right, so what does it tell you that tonight Chief Arredondo was placed on leave?
You know, it's interesting timing, and in particular, the statement that came out, which said from Hal Harrell, the superintendent, said that he had said that he would wait until the investigation was complete before making personnel decisions. But he said, today I am still without details of the investigations because of the lack of clarity that remains and the unknown timing of when I will receive the results of the investigations. I've made the decision to place Chief Arredondo on administrative leave. I think it really speaks to what we're seeing right now, which is this extreme bubbling up of frustration over how much secrecy is still surrounding this. We saw a heated city council meeting in Uvalde last night with just a lot of angry people showing up, speaking out against Chief Arredondo and against the the lack of information surrounding the investigation.
Well, and that brings me to another topic. Uvalde's state senator there, Gutierrez, is suing DPS now to release records related to the shooting. He spoke to NewsNation about the suit in an exclusive interview. It'll air tonight at 11 p.m. Eastern. Here's what he said.
Well, yesterday we have snippets of body cam footage from other agencies, but yet their own body cam footage, they have asked the Attorney General for an exception from, because they claim that we're going to allow future perpetrators some insight into their trade secrets, if you will, or their weaknesses, I think is the word they used. I think that we all know about the weaknesses from this particular operation. The people of Uvalde deserve to know the truth, and they deserve answers.
Now, I completely agree with him that justification that somehow they're going to learn something about this is nonsense. But who is he talking about? I mean, I'm trying to figure out this internal war that's going on there now between the State Department of Public Safety and the local officials. This is now the Uvalde state senator sort of siding with the local officials, right? Going after McCraw and the state officials. Am I right?
Sure. Well, I think what we're seeing now is a little bit of a backlash to the fact that the Texas Department of Public Safety, DPS, is in charge of this investigation, but they had at least 90 of their own officers on the scene, so they were actively a part of the response. And in all of their public statements and disclosures, they've talked extensively about the actions of other law enforcement agencies and really not provided much information on the actions of their own agency also at the scene. So I think that's what we're seeing is that backlash.
All right. Well, this is a mess as of right now, but this is interesting news about what happened to Chief Arredondo tonight. Elizabeth Fendel, thank you so much for coming on the program. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.